Hey Cindy, hey Rose. Ooh, I had some direct messages that were in a weird spot on Etsy, or not Etsy, TikTok, that I couldn't find or don't know even how I got there to even find them again, but they have this like inbox thing, and then you go here to look at messages, but some messages weren't even in there. They were in a folder in here. I don't know. It was very weird. And I opened up that one folder, and then there was like 5,000 messages in there. So I tried to reply to everybody today, but some people don't even have those TikTok accounts anymore or something. Hello, Rose. Hello, TikTok Unicorn. Hello, Miss Ashford. Hello, Susan. When's everybody taking their CPC exam? Does anybody have one scheduled? I know Jess is going to take hers tomorrow. Hey, Fawn. Somebody who just recently took their CPC exam wanted to note that this particular vocabulary term or anatomy term was on the exam, and I think Aapc would use this because OS also has another meaning in the eye area. So that's why they would have picked this one. It's because it appears to in the cervix when the OS is an abbreviation in the eye anatomy area. So they're always trying to find something very, very tricky to confuse you. Fawn, you're taking yours next Saturday? Oh my goodness. Write some of these down so I can remember some of this stuff. So Spencer is the 23rd of October. Oh, and then Ange is the same thing, the 23rd and the 24th. I'm assuming you're taking yours online, part one day and part 2 the other day. I love that setup. And then Fawn is doing next Saturday. You just need to update your books. If Miss Angel, if you have 2020 books, it's okay. Just update your CPT book. That's the major one you need to update. And you should be able to get it fairly cheap right now because the 2022 are coming out. So you could probably find one for less than 20 bucks, probably shipped. So just get you a 2021 CPT book. I don't recommend getting all the books updated because there's not a lot of changes in other ones. Let's see. It was you, Fawn, about the cervical OS. Good. Thank you so much for sharing. All the info that y'all share, I pass right along to everybody else. Yes, 11 each day. That's great. Love that. So far, the only updates from the 2021 version of the ICD10 guidelines to the ICD 2022 guidelines, they took out the word mother in all the pregnancies and they replaced it with person. And then they've added in some cool little charts that try to help explain some things a little bit easier. Like, I like the differences between the dependency, abuse, and use. So if your doctor says a patient is addicted to tobacco, of course, and they're using it, and they have a dependence to it, you only code one of those for the visit, and you'll choose the highest of the hierarchy, so it would be dependence. If they have alcohol abuse and use, you'll only diagnose the use that day, not the use. So I like their little hierarchy, little table there. And then there was, in the AAP version of the guidelines, there's this chemotherapy chart that I stole from them that I really like too, that they added to the guidelines in 2022. I love this. So I cropped it and I've been sharing it. I made a cancer one-pager sheet, but they did a cleaner job of it. I like that. Let's see. And that's pretty much it that I've seen of the changes of the guidelines. Nothing else has changed, but I'm not all the way through them yet. I'm working on it. I'm getting there. But so far, everything else is the same. So far. So guidelines that you need to know for your CPC exam. For sure, please know your chemo versus, conditions like, what if they have anemia with chemotherapy? What if they have dehydration with chemotherapy? What if they're seeing their doctor for cancer while they're getting chemotherapy? What if they have a certain cancer versus conditions? Like, which one do you code first when they have a malignancy? And it depends on which doctor they're seeing for which day, for which cancer. So knowing all those little guidelines will help out a whole bunch. Anemia versus the conditions. Sometimes you code it first, depending on what diagnosis they're being seen for or what's going on in their treatment plan. Sometimes it's second. Dehydration is also the same. If they're being seen for just nausea, vomiting, dehydration with no other comorbidities, there's one way to code it. And then if they're also getting dehydrated due to their malignancy, I was trying to say neoplasm, or anything like that, then you code it in a different sequence. And then if they're dehydrated due to their treatment of cancer, like chemotherapy or radiation, there's a different sequencing there. And AAPC likes to use that. So far, the guidelines have been the same. Angel, I haven't seen anything different. They just changed some wording. They took out the male and female, and they've changed the wording to person. And then they've added in some more charts. Well, AAPC did. The guidelines so far are the same. The only changes so far I've seen is some wording, but not like a major guideline. But like I said, I'm not through all of it yet, so don't quote me yet. But they mostly are the same since 1995 and 1997 when they created them. They update and give us more explanation of the guidelines, but they really haven't updated a major parts of them. The ones that you need to know for the exam is the ones that I focus on, which is chemo, anemia, dehydration. You need to know your injury sequencing. If they get hit in the face with a baseball, if they get chewed up with a chainsaw, stroke scales, your ulcer grades, wound ulcers, underdosing, overdosing, allergic reactions, and burns. You'll need to be sure and know how to sequence burns. But those are the top 10 that they always use on the CPC exam. The guidelines, they're only 5 to 10 questions on those, so we mostly need to focus on our coding, which is going to be 100 questions of the exam. Then you've got 5 hit picks, certain amount of number of ICD10s, certain amount of regulatory guidelines, those kind of things. But those are all littler sections. Yeah, you need to know them, but we've got to get your coding done first. But that's just an overview of the guidelines that you need to know. Just answering a message anytime. Happy to help, no matter what. So if you do go to Etsy and get pages of my book that are page by page done. But if you happen to have, you know, strapped for money, I know AAPC has already got you for the exams, the books, the annual memberships and stuff. You can get just one section. Like medicine was the last section that I did that has the most up-to-date, like every little thing that I learned along the way, sharing information and getting information from people taking their exam. It was the last section that I did this year of the 2021 book. So it's the most complete with all the examples and stuff. And I figured out a pattern of what to underline, circle, and what to note. And then you can just copy that pattern of what information I added to all the other chapters yourself. I didn't, you know, it's not rocket science, but I did put a lot of work into them, but you can do it too. I can teach anybody to do this. The main things are you need to do as the book says for you to do, the instructions on how to use this book. It tells you right here on page XIV, so is that 14, to be sure and highlight everything on the parent code after that little bitty tiny semicolon. That's going to be your difference between it and its children codes. All these children codes that are indented after it need to be boxed together. Then you need to note your differences. After you do that, you need to find some clinical examples of test questions or coding examples of patients that are been coded in your clinic, or somehow find some examples. Like I have 2 venous bypass grafts were completed. They used a particular vein into the right coronary and the other vein, and they used an obtuse marginal. So when they did that, they coded 33518, and then I have it highlighted in pink. My pink in my notes is CPT codes that were actually on my CPC exam from AAPC when I took up, or people that I've mentored since April that have taken it since then they let me know what codes were on their exam, and then I highlight them too. But this particular one was on my exam, and I put an example here. I recommend that everybody do 2 examples on every page in their CPT book. This book that I have right now is 2021. I'm waiting impatiently for the 2022 version so I can get started updating it for everybody. Sorry about the blurriness. My camera does not adjust well. After you've done your boxing, you've done your highlighted, you added your examples, you need to go through the book and fix all of the red codes that are out of sequence and go write the page number where it is beside the code so you can find it later. It's still going to be challenging because a lot of the codes that are out of sequence, once you get to that page, you can find it. But the problem is if you're looking for a code that might be around that area that isn't supposed to be out of sequence, they actually are pushed out of sequence because these codes are pushed where the other codes are supposed to be. Anyway, it gets crazy around lab. Lab is very difficult. There's a lot of 81s that are not in the 81 section when they should be, because they put 83s here that are from other pages. Anyway, it just gets crazy. Be sure you really know how to look up a code, multiple codes from lab and path. Be sure you've boxed, come on, all the codes and highlighted the differences. In the lab section, some of these results are, and questions that they ask, are more based on how do you get the result, not what the result is. Meaning, how did you do the test? These are definitive drug testing, and then some of them might be enzyme testing. Some of them might be multi-step. Some of them might be direct or amino acid testing, you really need to know how do they collect the test. Sometimes they want to know if a result is visually acquired by visually looking through the scope, or is it done by a computer, analyzed that way. So some of those things matter. On the panels, I add how many tests are in this. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 14 tests in this, so that when I see a question and it has just 10 things listed, then I know that's not the right one because I've already done the math. I just do it ahead of time. That way it helps on the panels so I can get through some of those questions a little bit faster. In radiology, not only do I do my boxing, sorry about the focusing on this stupid camera, but I also go in and note when they tell me not to use something, when they tell me to use something, when something is just unilateral, I make sure and make a mark of it. If it's bilateral, I make a mark on it. If it's a foreign body procedure, I write foreign body underneath the CPT code. I write diagnostic if it's diagnostic. If a particular x-ray is only for one particular region, I'll write that in. If it's a regular x-ray, if it's an MRI, a CTA, those kind of things, I go on and write down right beside the code so that if I'm looking for the difference between this code and this code, because those are the two that I picked that I need to run to in the process of elimination, and I'm just looking for keywords defined in the answer or the question to see if I find the right answer. If I know I'm just getting an x-ray and I'm not doing a CT scan, then I can just glance at those two right away and know this one's the only one that's an x-ray, so I know that that one's the answer. Instead of having to read the description over here. Any little second you have will help. You have 120 seconds per question. You have 5 hours and 40 minutes. You think that's going to be a long time, but it isn't. And when I say you have 120 questions per question to do it, seconds, that doesn't include what if I have to go potty in those 5.5 hours? What if I need to stretch or yawn or get a drink or, no, that takes time off of every single question. I like to say you have 90 seconds between each question. That gives you a buffer of 30 seconds per question, but still, it's not a joke. You are not coding, number one, so coding classes aren't going to help you. 2, you're just trying to find the answer quickly, and you need to be able to spot stuff with and without very, very, very quickly, extremely quickly. And you can't read every scenario. If you're reading the questions from 54-year-old patient here today with a history of blah, 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 you're never going to get through that exam. You're not. You will run out of time. You'll get probably 80 to 90 questions done, and then time will be up and you'll have to fill in the blanks for the rest. And that's a guarantee. So you cannot read the questions from beginning to end. What you need to do is run to the answers, evaluate them numerically, eliminate what you can based off what you know of the guidelines. Like if there's a modifier added to a certain answer, then like if it's bilateral, then you can skim your question quickly to see if you're doing right and left of something. If you are, then great. I know I'm going to keep the answers with the 2 modifiers. And then you're going to go look up those 2 CPT codes, only the ones that have the modifier with it. You will not have time to go through and look up every code that's a possible answer on those answers also. Even if you didn't read the question, you're not going to have time. You are going to have to eliminate some just based off numerical guidance, and you need to practice process of elimination before the exam so that you gain some confidence in it. Let me check the messages here before we move on. Can I use the HitPix 2019 edition? Yes, Spencer, I believe so. I wouldn't update that book at all. I would use it because nothing's changed in those HitPix. You only have 5 HitPix questions. It's going to be Medicare Pap smear, a Medicare wellness exam. It's going to be your colonoscopy for Medicare, and you may have a J code here or there for injections. It'll be a chemotherapy one, and it'll be injection in a knee or something. It's a Depomedrol. You might even have birth control implant in the arm, but none of those codes have changed in a decade. So you're going to be fine with an older version of HitPix. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And what books do I have? Oh yeah, I read that one. And time is no joke. Jess, how are you doing? Did you make it to your hotel? I think you're staying in a hotel, right, to do your exam tomorrow morning? I wish you all the best. We stayed on the phone for a couple of hours last night going over everything we could think of for her exam. This will be her second time taking one with me. The first time she took it, we had just met. I mean, she probably heard me do 4 lives or something, I don't know, before she took it the first time. And she was very, very close. She's going to get it this time because she's been with me for like over 8 weeks or more. I don't know how long, but she's definitely going to pass it this time. And she already has a coding job that she got before she got certified back in August on the assumption she is going to pass. So we need to really wish her 100% luck tomorrow to get that done. And she is going to try to start her test from the back of the exam this time and go forward. And I believe you can do that. I know we both have an issue with not answering questions in order, but I think if she just doesn't skip any and just starts from that way and goes backwards, I think it'll be easier. Your sheet is going to look like this if you do it in person. You're going to have 5 columns of 30 questions each. If you start from the last one and then work your way that way, you should be okay. And then you can still sort of stay in order. So hopefully you need to be sure and get 1 column done an hour. So did you get your letterhead too? Or letter opener? So you're not fiddling with that, because they tell you, okay, you can open. Well, your 120 seconds for your first question has already started. And you got to break this stupid 2-tab thing to open up your exam, and sometimes you're fiddling with it or ripping it. It's just those little circle things that go over and close the book up, and they can be a pain in the ass to tear into to try to open up the stupid pages. Just it alone. So please be sure and bring like maybe a little tiny letter opener, something you could slice and get into those pages super quickly because your timer's already started. They tell you to start, it's already started. And you can't even get into the stupid book, so it's a nightmare. And that 120 seconds does not include a pee break, so it's rough. It really is rough. You need to get through that test quick. She's in Ohio, and she's working for one of the major hospital places there, I think for the university, and she's coding in person, I believe. But she also has an associate's degree in science, which is something that I also have too. She didn't just take a coding course and working that way. She actually did get the associate's degree, which I believe makes a big difference too in hiring. So if anybody And you can get the associate's degree in applied science online too from any community college. Use your grant money and don't spend any other money. You can also apply for scholarships and extra grants. The colleges have extra money right now because of COVID. They were given a bunch of extra money. So if you can fill out a FAFSA, get you a grant, let it cover your course and your book that you might need for it, and get your associate's degree there, and don't spend a dime and do it all online. No, she is remote. That's great. It's wonderful. She's on puppy watch too. She's got a puppy. Is gonna have some babies soon. Did the puppy not give birth last night? You need to complete 30 questions in an hour. So that's 2 minutes each, right? 30 questions is 60 seconds, 60 minutes. So then you have that 1 hour done. So if you get through one column every hour, 30 questions every hour, you'll be in a good spot to finish on time with a potty break in there, and you might have 15 minutes to go back on some questions where you might want to go back and look at some later, or just walk away, whatever you want to do. Oh, good. Well, good. I hope she waits till Mama gets home. Are you driving home after the exam tomorrow or staying another night? And just, did you see this was on one of the people's exam, knowing what the cervical OS stands for? That's awesome, Ange. The associate's degree really does help. You will do just fine trying to find, and you can move up in administration with those and get higher up in administration, which you want to do because it's less work. Like if you're doing coding and you have a production, you need to do 100 patient charts a day. Well, it's all production and it's a lot of work. But if you're auditing people who are coding for the company to make sure they're doing correctly, well, it's less work and you don't have a production queue that you have to do so many per day. And then if you're auditing the auditor, and then it just all, the higher up you go in administration, the less work you actually have to do and the more money you make. She's staying until Sunday. That makes good sense. Sometimes your brain just like trying to drive home after one of those exams, if the exam place is very far away, is stressful. So glad you're staying one more day. Whoops. See what messages are going on. Casey, today was your part 2. Today was my part 2 of the exam. Is there anything you could share with everybody to let them know what questions you had, or maybe what items stumped you on the exam today that you didn't know? Some of those American Bulldogs are so funny on TikTok. They have their own little TikTok pages and they're hysterical. The 2 going through the car wash yesterday was hysterical. They were like, oh no, crawled into mommy's lap. And they're big. They're kind of tall little dogs, but they're a bit tall. That was funny. Hey, Mom. Hello. I'm just doing a live. There's some roast beef and taters in the crock pot. I'm eating it. Peas over there. Good. And I made some God cupcakes. Boys like some what? God cupcakes. They coined that term. It's just cupcakes that I take out just before they're done, and then I think practicing more and more is the best advice to give you to go over modifiers. Yes, some people say one of those versions of the test really had a lot of modifiers as part of the answers, and you don't even like have to look up a CPT code if you can just eliminate your modifiers and know exactly what each modifier means in its scenario. It can get pretty confusing, especially on the ones that are so similar, like discontinued a procedure versus reduced procedure. The professional component, the distinct procedural service, the 25 on the E&M one. My notes, let's see. Did you practice tests before you took the CPC exam? Somebody's asking me that. I did get the 3 practice exams when I bought the package to take the CPC exam. I didn't take it the first time. I mean, like I scheduled my exam right away. So I went in person so that I could just highlight all the codes in all the books that were on the exam as a possible answer. And that's why I took the test in person, was just to do that, because they won't let you have any pens or pencils or highlighters on your desk when you take it online. So I went in person just to do that, not intending on passing, and I didn't even read the questions. I just went through and highlighted all the codes that were a possible answer, and then just picked one. And then I went home and audited those, and then I audited everybody online that offers help. The COC people, I paid for their membership for a year. It's like $45 a month for a year. And then I did all the processes, everybody that's got websites, and followed along with whatever they're doing in advice. And then I went and took it again online. And I was still surprised about how unhelpful, even an AAPC course, how unhelpful the practice exams were, how unhelpful all the advice I'd paid for was for the actual exam taking. Like, I'm sitting there and I'm taking the exam. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know to do all the codes that were out of, no one had told me, even in the COC people, whatever that you pay for, to fix your out of sequence codes, to note your parenthetical notes. There was just so much that I needed to know for the exam to really feel confident and pass it with a surety that I felt pretty cheated, if that makes sense. And then I started following the AAPC CPC Facebook page. And then I was watching everybody during COVID, fail and fail and fail and retake, and they're spending all this money. And I was like, that's nuts. And then what they're paying for, and people are saying, go see the CCO people, go watch that guy's videos. And I thought, that's just unhelpful. All that is just unhelpful. What people really need is to know what to expect while they're taking the exam and how to answer those exam questions within the 90 seconds they have. And no one teaches that. And that's what I started doing. I just really randomly just started doing some TikToks that were just 1 minute fast little things that I didn't think anybody would see, but I felt like I wanted to say something to somebody. And so I just put them out there, and then little by little, one person found me, and then another person found me, and another person, and people were asking for more and more info, so that's how this turned into this. But those modifiers, knowing especially that there's modifiers for E, these E's are for all the I's, the FA's through the F9, your hands and digits, knowing which is the 5th digit, which is the 4th digit. That's unhelpful. I mean, You got digits. Is this the first digit or is this the first digit? Which one? Still, what they have in here is not fun. The ON for the ambulance, or the QN for the ambulance, was on my exam, and then knowing your T's for your foots. Those are super helpful. There's modifiers for anesthesia to know whether patients are sick before they got anesthesia or not sick. And I have examples in my notes too. Repeat lab will definitely be on the CPC exam. So patients getting glucose tolerance test or repeat oxygen sats, that modifier might be on the exam. The two surgeons, a repeat procedure versus unplanned procedure versus unrelated procedure. They love mixing that crap up and confusing you on which one you're doing. You need to only, don't read the question, only look for a scenario. If you over here, and there's two answers, one of them 77, one of them 78. So one of them's repeat, one of them's unplanned. So you're going to be looking for a key word that in the question it says we're going back again. If they're saying again or actually using the word repeat, think of a thesaurus. I can't hardly say that word correctly, but any words that AKA mean repeat, you should probably write here. You know, you should know these words that are again. She had something done a month ago. If you see the words a month ago, a year ago, that's mostly a repeat. It could be a year and they're doing another one because the other one failed. Unplanned means that they did not intend on doing whatever it was. So, additionally, they'll use those words. Additionally. Anything that a doctor might say to say a different word for unplanned, you need to have those in and thinking about them during the exam. I need to do a better job of putting in more AKAs for these modifiers, and I'll do that for 2022 version of notes. But that kind of stuff will help you. You're just going to look for keywords in the questions. Yes, I can touch on the musculoskeletal for sure. Let me keep checking. Thank you, Casey, for letting us know. I also looked up different YouTube videos. Yes, there's a lot of YouTube videos out there. I even have mine out there. All these lives get reposted onto YouTube. So be sure and go there to look for some advice. I took 2 Zoom classes through Aapc. Honestly, I found you about a week ago, and you have been the most help. Thanks, Ange. Aapc, one of their instructors, did contact me, and I did 2 Zoom classes for her students, and I was pretty helpful. I mean, that was wonderful. I was love being a guest instructor, and I hope I did help her class. And she emailed me later asking me if I wanted to teach one of her classes for like the whole 6 or 8 week class, and I said, well, send me some info on it and I'll see what I can do. So that's cool. I'm so glad. I think, you know, knowing how to code, even if you took a course on coding, if you started a job tomorrow and you aced everything in that coding course and you 100% knew everything that was going on in that course, when you started that job tomorrow, you aren't going to know a thing. There's not anything that you're going to know, because everything coding and medical billing wise is done differently at every sort of different clinic, they have different contracts with different health plans, with different entities. The labs will be billed differently. The patient's Blue Cross Blue Shield will be different from one group to another. It's insane how different it is all going to be. You might know some of the lingo and the anatomy and things, but you're not going to know how to bill for anybody until you get in there and you learn on the job. So that's okay. You just need to let go of trying to learn everything. Don't worry about all that. You're going to learn on the job. What you do need to learn, which I think is way more practical, is how to pass that CPC exam. And learning how to code is not going to help you because they've already coded it for you. You need to learn how to pick out the right answer quickly. And I don't like to have my time wasted. And I think those coding classes and courses and things that they're presenting are just very unhelpful. I felt very cheated. Honestly, that was just a waste of time. I'm very analytical and down to the point kind of person. I hate those meetings where they could have sit there for 4 hours and listen to whatever HR has to say when they could have sent me that in an email. I'm very Jeff Bezos that way or something. I don't know. I don't like all that stuff. They're wasting my time. And I always have felt like these coding things were just a waste of time, and it was breaking my heart to see all these people failing over and over again when there's an easier way. If people would just quit all that bullshit and quit selling some course that gives you a bunch of busy work that makes you feel like you're paying for something worth your time when it's just stressing you out and you're not learning anything that you can practically put in use for the CPC exam or on the job. Anyway, rant over. You just need to know how to pass this exam. And knowing the stuff that I'm putting out there will definitely help you pass the exam, because that's what I like to focus on, just to pass the exam. You'll learn everything else later on. This decision for surgery is a new tricky one that they're putting in on the CPC exam most recently, like past July. That modifier I've seen in one of our Aapc CEUs, the continuing education practice test. They give us 10 questions a month and they grade us on it to see if we are keeping up with the new standards. And decision for surgery is a new one that's coming up. It's just an evaluation and management service. The doctor talks to the patient and says, yeah, we got to cut you open. So you're going to add that modifier 57 to that. It's pretty cool. But it's just one they've not used often. They love using the multiple procedures, discontinued procedures, increased procedure. And so again, for this one, you need to think of AKA words. AKA for increased would be expanded. Expanded, increased. There's going to be complications. Complications occurred. Things like that they will have in the note, those key terms, but you just need to look for the key terms that mean increase. Anything that is an AKA word for that, for sure. There's one thing I need to go over about anesthesia, and yes, we will go over to musculoskeletal too. In Aapc they charge like $400 for those practice exam questions, and some of those questions haven't even changed since 2019. And then their course is what, $3,000, and then if you do an instructor-led course, that's another $2,500 or something. I don't know. They just get crazy with all those courses, and none of it helps you pass the CPC exam. All right, let's see. Musculoskeletal section. Yeah, that Hong guy, everybody keeps talking about him. The only problem that people face is it takes a little while to learn how to listen to him because of the language barrier. So you need to practice just even hearing the way he talks to be able to pick up on the words. So I hear he's pretty good. I've not listened to him or watched his videos yet. Oops, let's see. I do medical billing and coding, and it changes monthly, yearly, but I'm not a CPC. Yep, Connor. When are you taking your exam? I know you and Jess have been here the longest and have bugged me the most, which is not bugging. I mean, like, you've participated, asked questions, been here for the lives. You're in the chat room that we have on Messenger. You always help me if I ask a question, and I'm trying to be helpful by teaching you something with a question and answer thing. You're always participating. Just love it. That's our Messenger group. If anybody wants to be in there, we talk daily about codes and stuff. Just find me on Messenger. It's Jen Brewer, same as TikTok, same TikTok profile, and ask to join, and then I can join you there. But I share tons of info there, of course, like I share in the lives, but there's always other things we talk about. There's 4 practice questions for today. I was talking about making cupcakes, but we do absolutely share things. This is from somebody who just took their CPC exam, who made some notes on what she didn't understand during that exam that she wanted to go over later. So it's a really cool, free, 100% free, happy to help you, but I'm waiting on Connor to get done with theirs too. Hey, Tiffany. So don't worry. Yes, Marisol. It's all correct. So don't stress yourself out trying to learn, or if you're in the middle of an AAPC course and the course is good, the chapter is taking you 6 hours to go through, don't. Just don't. None of that's going to be helpful. Just take your quizzes at the end of each chapter. If you fail that quiz, write down the question and the answer before you get rid of your quiz. And you can also highlight the entire quiz and hit print to PDF, and then save that in your documents. Then you can go take the next test. 70% of the questions will be the same questions. They will throw in about 30% new ones, but you'll at least have the answers and questions for most of the questions that are going to be a repeat, because you've got to pass it the second time you take. You got to get 70 or above, or they shut down the course and won't let you move forward. So that's some advice there. 57 goes on, an E&M code. Difficulties, you're right. He's good. You get used to it. Hello, Tiffany. And are you talking about Facebook Messenger? Yes, Ange. Hopefully I explained that enough. Hey, Rose, let's see. If a patient has hypertension with diabetes uncontrolled, which one would you code first? It depends on who they're seeing and what's going on. So if they are seeing an endocrinologist for their diabetes that day, or getting diabetic education through a nurse practitioner or something, obviously diabetes goes there. They're seeing primary care physicians and who's taking care of an overall issues of a little bit of everything. They don't ask this 100% all the time during the CPC exam. What they do is underdosing and overdosing of insulin all the time. And they ask that question, if a patient is on insulin, do you automatically give them the diagnosis code of type 1 diabetes? The answer is always no on that one, because they can be on insulin but have type 2 diabetes for sure. Hypertension, cardiovascular disease with secondary or is a secondary. You do have certain guidelines here for things. Their underlying condition can also go first, and then their hypertension will go second. It depends on the scenario of what's been going on, if they're controlled or out of control. It is a lovely quandary. And then the diabetes is, that's pain. They've tried to do a chart here. If they have heart disease or CKD, then if they do, then you do it here. If they don't, you do it there. I'm not certain about how absolutely helpful those are. I wish they would do a combination, because we've got the diabetes here, and then they've got diabetes that says all these other things with all their scenarios. Most of your patients will have gotten hypertension before they got the diabetes. They start getting overweight, their blood pressure goes up, they start getting treated for their hypertension first. Then when they get sedentary and older in life, they get the type 2 diabetes, which comes in place second. You need to mostly go over what is in the patient's chart or history and make sure you know which one manifested first. It's very difficult if they do come in and they have them both instantly and automatically all together. Whichever one is causing the most or the most outrageous, like if their hypertension is like 140 over 90, yeah, they have hypertension, but they're not at stroke level, but their hemoglobin A1C is over 10, then you know their diabetes is the most prevalent diagnosis, and you should code that one first. If they're both fine and they're both under control, oh, good question. I'm not sure if I know 100% in every single scenario what would we code first. Yeah, a lot of claims get denied. And a lot of, if you read your EOBs from those denial claims, they'll tell you what you can do to correct it. It's in weird numerical explanations, like it'll say E2, and then you got to go find E2's explanation, and then it'll say like O2.3, then you got to go find that explanation and put those two explanations together to try to figure out what the heck the health plans are saying. But a lot of times you are given your own health plan rep for each health plan. You may not know that, but I know your claim manager knows it because they get audited by them. You can also ask to speak to your Blue Cross Blue Shield rep, and you can have a conversation with them. Say, hey, I've been getting all these denials for this, this, and this. Why is that? They probably don't know the answer either, but they can hunt it down for you, and they'll try to find out. Just trial and error, too. It would be really nice. I'm hoping one of these days that they will combine these two and give us more direction on what to code first, because the health plans can interpret these guidelines their own ways, and they do. And they'll interpret them in a way that you wouldn't even think that you could interpret them that way, but they do. Who interprets the national guidelines? Those ICD-10 guidelines. Who does that? You should know this for the exam also. Oh, it's not going to be in this book. It's going to be in something else. Hold on. Hey, Shells. So, those guidelines in the front of ICD-10 are regulated and, well, interpreted by who? Who interprets them? These lovely guidelines. And you know what? Just thinking again about diabetes and hypertension. Diabetes is first in the guidelines. Hypertension is secondary. I would code based on that alone if I had no other information. If I don't know when the patient developed each scenario, because they weren't with us the whole time, I would diagnose diabetes first because it's the first in the guidelines, and then hypertension after because it's in the guidelines after diabetes. There's an answer. Ooh. Oh yeah. Look at all that crap I drew in on these pictures. I got crazy with some of these pictures. Whew. But I must have wrote it in the CPT book instead of this one. I was going over that last night with Jess. The national organization who does it's there. Right here. No. So the NCD, National Coverage Determination, interprets the ICD-10 guidelines. They send their interpretation to the Medicare Administration Contractor, MAC, who interprets what they said the guideline says and sends that interpretation to the Local Coverage Determination, LCD, to local regions. Each region of the United States will have a different interpretation based from MAC. And those local coverage determinations are what each health plan in that region is supposed to go over and evaluate to know how to code. Coders in regions should get the local determination interpretations to be able to go over those to see what the health plans are getting. So if you're really into coding and maybe you want to manage a coding group or you want to be the director of coding, if you would get your local coverage determination for your region and you would audit that with your guidelines, you could rock the socks off of some people and, you know, take care of your whole department. But these are things you should know, at least what the abbreviations mean. What does NCD mean? What does MAC? Remember, there's two MACs. There's monitored anesthesia, and then there's this Medicare Administration Contract, TOR. You need to know that abbreviation. You need to know what an ABN is, and also need to know what OIG means. That's the Office of a General Inspector, who comes in and makes sure that everybody's compliant with the NCDs. And there's a yearly work plan that everybody should have. You need to make sure you know what your Health Tech Economic and Clinical Health Act of 2009. Just know the name and know the year. You need to know what ARRA stands for. That's the American Recovery Reinvestment Act that helped create HIPAA. You need to know that an ABN is something they get Medicare patients to sign that says they'll pay $100 towards their lab work that's not covered, or up to 25% of the cost if it's less than $100. You need to know what Part A, Part D, Part C, Part B pay for. You need to know about the Medicare HMO coverage that people can sign up for. They get rid of their regular Medicare and they can go to an Advantage plan. You just need to know that that's a possibility. And the Advantage plan takes the Medicare plan and turns it into an HMO where they have to get referrals and authorization for stuff. But it covers more stuff apparently, but I would never let somebody do that. RBRVS, be sure you know what those abbreviations stand for. And this is just all your compliance and regulatory stuff. They're going to pick 5 questions from all that. And if you at least know the names and abbreviations, you can work through the correct answer for those. Musculoskeletal. Let's get to that section. And I do have some plastic questions too for tonight that we haven't even gone over. If diabetes is not specified, always do diabetes type 2. Don't ever diagnose them with diabetes type 1 for sure. And musculoskeletal, we're just rocked a 90% on this one, I think. No, not this one. She did on integumentary and on cardiovascular, guys. Can y'all believe that? A 90% on cardiovascular. Rocked it out. Just crazy, insane good scores. I mean, she had to have been so freaking close to passing that exam. And time is what got her. She had to guess the last 40 or 50 questions by just circling C, and that's what killed her. It wasn't what she did, because what she knows, and she answered, but she took twice as much for every question, 4 minutes per question, and she ran out of time. So seriously, get the information where it needs to go, to the codes where it needs to go, and be able to answer these questions really fast. Be sure to get your prefixes, get your suffixes, major modifiers. Sometimes you'll have 2. Your major diagnosis codes, just have them around. Add to certain body parts that they have drawn in, but they didn't add. I know my handwriting is terrible, but I'll have it typed next year. Be sure you know that the spine can be called, the vertebrae body can be called segments or interspaces. They have a lot of AKAs in this. Just knowing how many cervical, how many thoracic, how many lumbar could also help. I even have, like, there's 22 bones in the skull. Just random facts that you can Google and add. Like I have, this is the distal, this is the middle, and that's the proximal fingers. And I saw ortho yesterday because I injured these last 2 fingers and I can't use the 2 knuckles. And she ordered an MRI. But I can bend everything else. I just can't bend these 2 because I fell with my cell phone in my hand. That damn thing right there. And when I fell, those 2 knuckles hit the edge of my flippy phone, and I did something to the back of the tendons right there. But that's my flippy phone. That's what I did. But for knowing the trigger finger injections for these things, you're going to need, this is distal, this is middle, and this is proximal. That's the PIP joint right there, in case you wanted to know, but I've never seen that on the exam. You can draw in bones. You can put a ton of information here. You've got plenty of white space. Most common hip picks for those knee injections are those two codes, that kind of stuff. Knowing that you're going to, if you have multiple procedures in musculoskeletal or in integumentary, you always code the biggest procedure first. Meaning, like if you remove a lesion, you remove some skin tags and you do a punch biopsy. Your order is the lesion removal, because it will have stitches, first. Your biopsy, even if it's a punch biopsy, will be second. And then your skin tags, even if you have 50 to 100 skin tag removals, will be the last thing, because those are super easy as far as a procedure goes, and they don't require any stitches. All these pink codes, the very first ones, were all on my CPC exam. Be sure you know how to deal with exploring penetrating wounds. You're going to have some gunshots. I had 2 examples on my test. Stabbings, chainsaws. Chainsaws not really penetrating, but stabbings, definitely some gunshot wounds. Be sure you know how to code those. We had injections into muscles. You need to know they're separated by how many muscles were injected. 1 to 2 muscles or 3 or more muscles. That's all. Okay. Let's see. The halo thing for the kids. We had one of those with the wires, pins, and screws and all that stuff. There's a weird way that this book is set up, because sometimes your CPT code is here, and then sometimes that same CPT code is over here with a picture and stuff, and it can drive you nuts because the child code is right there underneath it when it should be right here underneath this one. I even got the box wrong because of this. The parent code is right here. That code is the same code as this code. And sometimes these description and pictures that they're trying to help you are on a different page from the original code. I really needed to have had this in the box with an arrow going to this one. This is just added extra information. It's not to be used to code with. The part that is supposed to be coded is this one, and you go past the semicolon. So this is without ultrasound guidance, and then this one is with ultrasound guidance. This is just a description of the procedure with a picture, but that is not what you code with or what words will be on the CPC exam. So knowing that difference for the next year, I'll make sure we have this fixed for next year. There's one thing I wanted to go over with the anesthesia. Several people that have been on a lot of my lives, I go over anesthesia a bunch because there was a lot of anesthesia codes on the CPC exam. You will get a full 10 questions, and there's not very many pages. We're talking 5 pages of codes, but a lot of people don't do very well because they don't know their anesthesia modifiers, which are not in this book. They're in the HCPCS book. You need to make sure you get those transferred into the CPT book, and I put them on this green page down here at the bottom, but they're just written in my handwriting, which is really hard to read sometimes. But the HCPCS, no, the modifiers for anesthesia are in the HCPCS book. The back folder in my book, these, you need to make sure you have all of these, the AA through the QZ, QX, QS. These are the ones they're going to use most, is the monitored anesthesia. Remember I said MAC, MAC. They're going to be using the QY because of anesthesia done by a nurse practitioner under doctor's direction, or the one where the nurse practitioner's doing anesthesia without a doctor's evaluation or instructions. They love using these. Get these transferred to your CPT book. The other thing I've been telling everybody is if a patient is under 1 year old and over 70, you need to add this 99100 code to the coding answer as a secondary code for the anesthesia. But if the code has the description that the child is younger than 1 year old, you don't use that code. So some of these codes will say a patient's age. If it does say that, you don't use that code. Grumble. So if we're doing a surgery on major vessels of a neck for a newborn, you will add it, right? Because it doesn't have an age on here for this particular code. I had a child get something done on their esophagus that was younger than 1 year old. I believe they were 10 months old, and I needed to use the 99100. But I also had this one for the larynx for the 10-month-old to remove a mass. This one you don't use the 99100 because the anesthesia code description actually says an age. I hope that makes sense, and I have not made that distinction at all before in my lives. This one's 1 year or older, but if they're younger than 1 year, you're going to use this one, and you're not going to use that 999 or 99100 code, right? Because it's got an age in the description. Not all these codes do have an age. Certain ones do. And I need to make a better note about that, whether you can use the 99100 or not. But they used all these codes. And the main thing is, look right there, they even have it in the parenthetical notes, which are not marked in red right here, which should be the do not. So this 366, you cannot use that code. Sometimes they'll tell you. Most of the time they don't. There's another one. I do nots. But you see they have younger than 1 year of age right there written in it. So they say do not use it. So hopefully that helps clear up that for sure. We got 8 more of you left in here. Let's go look up some practice of elimination. Let's do some practice since we've done almost an hour and a half of just getting the book right. Let's do some questions. You try not to look at the question. So let's just evaluate this one numerically. So numerically, get out my little pen here. Let's draw. Okay. So for the process of elimination, what you need to come in and attack this CPC exam, you really need to be able to go fast. Sorry, I'm trying to get underneath here and write while I'm holding the camera, and you see that 46 is down twice. So that code is 47 and this one's 45. So I would just eliminate those two, and I would go and see if I need to use this modifier 26. What modifier is 26, guys? Does anybody know? 26 is professional component. So I would see if we need to use professional component or not. And so just skim your little question to see, and it says interpreted by the physician. So it looks like the physician did the x-ray. Did they do it in their office or in the ER? It just says, so I'm assuming it's in their office. See, interprets the x-ray. If you see anything that says interprets, then they're using that modifier 26. So you're definitely going to pick your answer and move on. I didn't even have to look up a CPT code for that. Modifier was it. This one, we've got this 26 and, or I'm sorry, 76 and 75 that are super close and numerically to each other. So I'm going to eliminate 20 and 60 because they're not as close as the 70 and the 75 and the 76. I know it seems really odd, but Aapc has a pattern with these CPC questions that they will give you two throwaways that are way off base, and then they'll give you two that are super similar. Now, because 65 is in one of my outliers, is what I call it, and this 42 is not in one of the outliers, I'm going to lean towards D, and if I was out of time, I would just pick D and move on without even looking at the question or anything. But for purposes, we're going to go look those up. I'm going to start with 55875. Going to run, and you see how long this takes just to go open the book and go look. And remember, your 2 minutes started when you're trying to open up that silly book. So 55875 and 76. If they're under different headers, if these were like one was under this one and one was under this, that's all I would look up. But since they're under the same thing, they're both their own parent code, right? One of them is, well, they're both placements. And they're both going to be doing something to the prostate. So what I do is just go from word to word. This is transparenteal, and then they've got placement. Placement of needle, placement of device or catheter to the prostate for radiotherapy, for radiolimit application, or cystology. So we're placing needles, catheters, or we're placing a device other than a needle or a catheter. So we just skim our question backwards up because we need to make sure, and they're doing those radiographic seeds. They're doing those seeds. When you see the word seeds, seeds are, of course, little balls, but they hold radiation. So this is a form of chemotherapy, immuno and chemo, radiation, and radiology. So you're talking about they're getting, because the prostate is really, really hard to get to. It's underneath so much stuff. You can't get radiation to beam to the prostate without tearing up a bunch of other stuff. They have to actually implant the radiation into the prostate and let it slowly dissolve and eradicate that area right there. So seeds is something super important to remember to have for radiation. So the differences in these two is we're definitely not putting any needles or catheters in here. What we are doing is radiation therapy. So right here, what I should have put for this year, and I didn't, and we need to do it for next year. Radiation therapy means AKA seeds. So we know anytime they say the word seeds, we can automatically pick that answer. Number 5, the 75 is our answer, and move on to the next question. Let me know if I'm not clear or if you need more explanations. So this one, we've got, that one's not the same and that one's not the same, right? We're going to love our A and D because they start out the same. Even the third is the same, or yep, and then this one is the same. So the only two different codes is the S52. We've got 502 and 602. So that's the only two codes we're going to go look up, is those two, because they're the only ones that are different. Sorry about all the jiggling. There we go. So this one will be a diagnosis one, right? S52. And for diagnosis ones, to help you out there, I write out little scenarios. If we've used S2242XA for something, I used it for a closed fracture of 3 ribs to the left side. I just write a little scenario next to the ones that I did. That helps. That way if I come down here and I see one on the exam, I know I'm in the right spot if it's the same sort of scenario. S52. And I'm super slow. Y'all have to be a whole lot faster than me. 5250. 5250. And then see up here, I've got even more scenarios. Displaced, both forearms fractured, and that's the way they coded it. Write them in the correct format for each one. S52502. Nope, one more. 502. S52 502. And then 602. Where is 602? 602. Right here, right here. So we've got fracture of the lower end of left ulna or left radius. That's the two differences. This one's ulna and this one's radius. So then all we have to do is look at our question, skim the question for where are we at? Displaced radius. Which one was radius? Verify it was this one over here. right? No, we're in the ulnas. 502 was radius. 502 is radius. So A is our answer. And that's it. If you try to read 100 questions with 76-year-old and whatever the heck she did with her dog, and you're going to have 100 questions in your head during the exam. If you do it the way I did it, all we had in our head was radius and ulna. That's it. A lot less words than reading these from top to bottom. Plus, you're going to waste too much time. I didn't need to know any of that information about her dog and all that stuff. And you're going to carry all of that with you for your next question. All I'm carrying with me is ulna and radius, and I'm done. So hopefully that helps you see in those scenarios and how fast I did them, that it was helpful. What are y'all doing out? I gotta go yell at my kids. I'll be right back. What are you doing? Nothing. How's that bedroom and those clothes coming?
Yeah, I saw that.
You saw that? You got an award today?
Yep.
James is going to have some tutoring in math, for sure. For sure. All right. Oh, one kid was taking stuff out of the neighbor's garage. I mean, all the kids were in there, but one of my kids found a rope that was really cool, and he wanted to play with it. And he didn't ask permission, and he just grabbed the rope and was in their driveway playing with it. And you know, you can't take things without permission. And then my other kid was watching him do it and just let him do it. So you're in trouble for associating with a criminal. So they're both in their room thinking about their decisions. Because the neighbor's granddaughter came over and said, "Grandma is mad." They're in there taking their stuff. I didn't mention, oh yeah, well, your granddaughter was over here stealing my LOLs out of my garage 6 months ago, but I didn't tell on her. I want my LOL doll back. I sometimes resell retail stuff, and if I find it for a penny or $1 or something, I'll put it up on my carrier or something and resell it. But it's hard when the neighbor kids are stealing all your swag, man. But that's okay. My boys will know better next time. Any of these little scenarios, open reduction of internal fixation, left wrist distal radius fracture, was coded like this on one of my examples. I like putting them in there just to have them in the ICD10. One of the major things that I did was some of the guidelines that might be more difficult, and I didn't do it in this book apparently. Really? What book is? Oh yeah, I'm in a really old book right here. This is the 2021 version. Oh, where is my other ones? I got books and books and books and books everywhere. There it is. Is taking the guidelines like external causes and moving it to the indexes, and then also moving it to the chapter headers in each section. Hold on, they're having so much fun. I'm gonna have to go yell at them again. Shoo. There we go. Move it to the chapter headings, because that way you have your guideline with the codes that are effective. Yeah, y'all aren't going to get out. I'm having to leave my life and come deal with you. Quit getting him. Coat hanger. Jeez. I tell them to hang up their clothes with their, and then so of course it becomes a coat hanger war. And they start beating each other with the coat hangers. Too bad I don't have the wire ones. I have those easy plastic ones now. Those aren't as fun. But see, I just add the guideline to the codes. That way I have it there with the diagnosis codes. There's only 10 diagnosis codes on the CPC exam, so don't go all crazy, but those external causes, those are easy to put there. The burn ones I put near the burn codes to sequence those properly and stuff like that. Let's see, let me check chat and see. I'm so glad I found you. I like how you eliminate the answers. I need to watch you do that more. Yes, Unicorn, that is just a really, really the best way to get through the exam and not lose your mind, get correct answers, and bypass the psychological makeup of the exam question. AAPC has people who are psychologists who write up these questions to confuse you to pick the wrong code. But if you eliminate human nature out of that scenario by reading the question from the beginning to the end and then evaluating your codes, you can circumvent their psychological crap they put into the questions also, because I see a lot of these questions are written to confuse you. But if you're looking for just the keywords from the actual descriptors of the CPT codes in the question without reading the question, and you match, it's like a word search, you match those, then you'll be able to pick your answer with confidence and move on quickly to your next one. I have reposted all my old lives if they recorded. Some of them did not record properly, but they're on YouTube if you want to go find me there, Coding by Jen. So they're there too, so you can watch them over and over again to do that process of elimination. Hi, Michelle. Nice to see you. We're also on Messenger daily, so we have a little chat room. And then copies of all my books, like the CPT book, page by page of how I did it and fixed it for the book exam, is also available there. The Messenger group is really cool because we chat all day. We share information about what codes people are missing. I send out practice test questions and try to get participation and people to help. So if you have Messenger or don't, just download the app. It's super easy. You don't have to get Facebook for it. Just download Messenger. Follow me at Jen Brewer. Same profile pic as here on TikTok. Ask to join our little group if there's room. Because sometimes it says I have too many people in there, but so far we're okay. I'll let you know when I'm going live to teach the process, and I share so much information here. Lots and lots. There's our cancer chart, when to code, when it's primary, when it's secondary. My sepsis one guide, it sheet that tells you when to code the sepsis rules because they flip and flop around. That's another neoplasm one I made. Just tons of stuff. This one was cool about the hypertension and the diabetes one. Somebody was asking me about today. This was about the, ICD10 is about to change. In January 2022, the World Health Organization is going to switch over to ICD-11, then that means because the United States is still utilizing ICD-10, when we send them information about how many patients have cancer or are dying of HIV, they're going to have to crosswalk that data into their data system, and it's not going to be straightforward. Usually when the World Health Organization adopts a new version of ICDs or CPTs, we follow suit. We are slow about it though, but we will be doing it. So when we do change from one to the other, our codes are going to be different. This is just one code for muscle pain right here, what it will be turning into for ICD-11. So another scenario is ICD-10 or 9. Remember our old code for hypertension was 401. We switched over to ICD-10, which is already a decade old, 10 years old. Now our hypertension code is I-10. When we switch over to ICD-11, our hypertension code will be either the BA code, so instead of 3 digits, it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 codes plus the dot in the middle. There's what our hypertension used to be. This is what it is now for our diabetes. And this is what diabetes will be. It's like 15-digit long thing for our ICD-11. Now, for people that are having a hard time, maybe even have no experience coding, if you put forth the effort to learn ICD-11 before it comes out in the United States, let me tell you, you could ask for whatever you wanted, hourly rate, to help the EHRs create crosswalks, taking that codes to these codes. You could write your own ticket. If you could train staff on new coding in ICD-11, if you know it well enough to teach, you could ask for any pay scale you want when they implement and make that go into effect, because you could walk into clinics already knowing what all the major brand new codes are and help them develop policies and procedures and train their staff. You could ask for any rate you wanted. So that is an avenue I suggest everybody go into. Don't try not to learn the new stuff that's going to be coming out. Learn it ahead of time and then demand whatever pay you want to teach. Because groups, everybody, you're going to have that older staff who's been coding for 20 years who are going to refuse to learn it, and they're going to tap out and retire. And then you're going to have newbies who just finished a course on it and don't know what's going on. And then if you already have been studying it before they implemented it, you could write your own ticket. That's how I did auditing every new program that came out, from pay for performance, PQRI, HEDIS, STARS, risk adjustment. All those words that came out were scary to people. Nobody in administration wanted to learn them or learn the new program. I always volunteered for it. Give me the paperwork. Let me see what's going on. Then nobody knew how to do it, and I was the only one that knew how to do it and made myself invaluable. Now I, can go to work tomorrow for whatever pay rate I want if I wanted a different job. So it's invaluable advice. Learn it ahead of time. Whatever you can find out on ICD-11 ahead of time, keep it in a folder on your computer and just bone up on it all you can whenever you have time. You will make yourself invaluable for sure. I added information to anatomy, like parts inside the kidney there that they may or may not ever ask about. Who knows? But anything that you can add to any photos in the CPT book, I highly recommend, because they do a really poor job of doing AKA words or actually identifying all the parts. They draw them in, but then they don't identify them. So anything you can do like that would be so helpful. I'm glad this is helpful one, Michelle. You're welcome. TikTok Unicorn. Can you remind me what the digestive anatomy was on the exam? Yes, Miss Casey. That is the order of digestion. They love, love, love to see if you know what is first or second in the digestive system, like the ileum, cecum, duodenum. Which one is first in the digestive system? And so I went in on their body part, and I started out with the oral cavity, labeled it as number 1, went through esophagus as 2, and then I named everything. They didn't even draw in the descending colon, which would have been 10, and I drew that in. So be sure you know these, because a lot of people don't know where ileum, cecum, and the duodenum are in the digestive process, which one's first, second, or third. So be sure you know those for sure. And this word, CHYME, equals partially digested food. Kind of like cud in a cow, you know. You always talk about. And, you know, the oropharynx is also called just a plain pharynx. Hopefully that's helpful. And how do you get into the group? So, again, just follow me on Messenger. Download that Messenger app and look for Jen Brewer right here. Same profile pic, me and some boys. 2 of those are mine, 2 are the neighbors. But find me there and message me, and I'll join you to the group. ICD-11 info, where can you get it? The World Health Organization has been releasing a lot of information. I got that information that I shared from Aapc, but just a Google search of ICD-10-11 will bring up a ton of information, release dates. You could even do examples from ICD-10. You can even Google that, where it's just ICD to that. The CDC has information on it. The World Health Organization has info on it. AAPC has been doing some questions on it. Wikipedia has already started. Some of that info might not be correct, though, on Wikipedia. But AAPC most definitely have an article on it and gave us some insight on what's changing in the structure, what each digit's going to mean. Most definitely. And then there's those coding examples. And see where I got the hypertension one from. It's not rocket science. Just Google. For sure. Telling you, the more you're not afraid to learn new stuff, the more you can make yourself invaluable. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to refuse to learn anything new and just be stubborn about it. And change will happen. You will lose your I-10 for hypertension some point in the near future. And the World Health Organization is already switching over. So we'll be next. I don't know when, but we'll be next. So going on and know it's a BA00 for hypertension, get that locked in memory, or on some sort of card, some sort of cheat sheet you could develop ahead of time. You could make yourself invaluable. So invaluable to medical groups, hospitals, you name it. You could write your own ticket for sure. Jess, I'm so excited. I really hope you pass tomorrow. I hope you do great. I hope you feel very confident going in and you bang it out. I wish you all the luck in the world, and this is going to be a very difficult week and waiting for your exam results. But I know you're going to pass it this time. You've been with me over 2 months now, and you've really worked very, very hard. You've been very, just participated. I think you seem very determined to do this, and I know you're going to do just fine. No, you're just going to do just fine. Just don't let your anxiety get away from you, Jess. Just relax. You've got this. I know you know all this information. Questions. You and Connor, you two always answer the right answers, and y'all are going to do just well. Just so well. Just have all your books in the car, everything, your pens, your highlighter, your letter opener. Go on and go put it out in the car. Have it all in there. If you have to go somewhere and do this test, if you're not doing it online, just have it all in there. Have your outfit already picked out in the morning, and just relax. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Don't study anymore. Get up and get going for your test. Got this, Jess. We're all behind you. We know you can do this. You know it. Just don't read the questions. Don't second guess. Just pick an answer and move on. I think she bought a lot of my notes too. She's transferred all that mess over there to those, to her books. She's so gonna pass. Just start at the end. Start at the end, girl. Hello, Allergic Golden Knuckle. Great name. Don't forget the back of your book has a ton of abbreviations. All those abbreviations in the back you could possibly run into. Modifiers in your hip picks. There's even more modifiers in the front. If they ask you some question about which modifier is excluded from these CPT codes, remember it's always 51. The answer will be 51. And E&M, girl, we went over E&M last night. I really hope it's forgiving for you and that E&M is good to you. Just be sure you're under the right heading. Got to make sure you're under the right heading. That's the only thing. What else? And that one place of service question they might ask you, it's on the very first page of this book. And then, did we look up, does it even say here? You know about when CPT updates, because that little chart's up here. Is there a little chart in the front of ICD10 that says when ICD10 updates every year? I believe there is, after the guidelines, right? Something. Be sure you know when things update. When does HCPCS update? When does ICD10 update? When does it go in effect? There's 2 dates you need to know, months, years for each one of those. I know the CPT book has a list of them. I bet it's up here in the very beginning of the guidelines where it says it updates. I should have that highlighted. Well, of course, I mean, it goes into effect October 1st every year. That's a given for the ICD-10, right? Yes, I can do that. Yes, I can show that. Hold on one second. Got your watch. Good. Yep. Got to be sure and have a watch with you with the hands on it, not digital. Can you again go through that page? Yep. YouTube channel on it. Yep. Yep. Here you go. I wish I had been more consistent. It was just sort of this stuff just kind of blew up really fast. I do have a website, Medical Coding by Jen. There's 10 E&M questions and answers just on the front page. You don't even have to sign up. You scroll down halfway down and there's a practice E&M quiz there. It's very difficult. It's high level, but it's there. Inside there, you can schedule an appointment to have a one-on-one consultation with me. We spend an hour, just like this. You can go through my books and I'll answer questions. I can even have you practice some test questions. You can schedule the one-on-one with me there. It's like $27. It's not hard. YouTube repeats are right there. Tiki Talks are here. Messenger is Jen Brewer. And then copies of my books, page by page, if you want them, are there on Etsy. What else do I have? I just wish I'd been more consistent. And I need to probably light up the name better than what I do. I don't know. But that's where to find me. Oh, on my website, Medical Coding by Jen, it shows you with screenshots how to prep your book like I have. It'll show you step by step. I've got 1 through 3 steps in the first little, I don't know what you call it, like a blog. And then I have step 4 on adding everything else that you need to add is there too. So there's screenshots of the pages, what to write, where, and how to prep your book like I have so that you can do it just like this. So you don't have to buy the Etsy pages, but you can if you're in a rush and you need to, and you just need to know what to write on what page, then have at it if you want to. But I'm happy to teach you. Be sure you know each unit in anesthesia is 15 minutes. Be sure to know that. Your 4 different anesthesias. And then what else? Can you go through hydration guidelines? Yes. Dehydration flips around differently than anemia does in the chemotherapy section. I wish they were more consistent. So dehydration when it's a malignancy, dehydration is first, malignancy is second. If they're being seen for chemotherapy, you do the Z code first, then the malignancy. If they're being seen by a doctor who's treating their secondary metastasized cancer, you do that diagnosis first, then their primary. If they're... Lee, can you get the kids to be quiet? I can't concentrate like that. They're really loud all the way through the house. If they're being seen for a malignancy and then they develop anemia due to the malignancy is coded first, then the anemia. Now, if they got anemia due to chemotherapy or immunotherapy, you do anemia first, then the neoplasms, then you do the T code third, because you need to note that it's an adverse effect of the chemo. If it's radiology or radiation treatment and they get anemia because of the radiation, anemia goes first, then the neoplasm, then there's a Y code to note that radiation reaction. Then dehydration due to malignancy is this way. If it's nausea and vomiting and they get dehydrated for no malignancy reasons whatsoever, you're going to denote, there should be a reason. If it's a medication adverse reaction to a medication, right here, you're going to do the nature of the effect that the medication had on them, like nausea, vomiting, dehydration, something like that may have occurred. But you will do the nature of the side effect. They had a lot of nausea and vomiting. Then you're going to do the name of the medication and these T codes. Then you'll do the dehydration that caused after it. If they were actually poisoned by a medication. Am I even showing it correctly? Probably not. Sorry. If they got poisoned due to a medication, you're going to do the manifestations of the poisoning, then the drug or alcohol, and if it's got dependence or not. So if they come in for alcohol poisoning, you'll do the name of the alcohol, then you'll do what happened to their body, and then you'll note if they're dependent or not, or if they're just abusing it. This is the one for the adverse reaction to the medication that caused nausea and vomiting or dehydration. You'll do the nature of the effect, nausea, vomiting. Then you'll do the T codes, list the drug, and then you'll do the dehydration that came after the adverse effect. There's your cause and effects for the external causes that I moved to each section of the ICD-10 under external causes. These guidelines get crazy. I write so much information on them, but it's going to be cool when I ever finish the 2021 version because they're super cool. I don't know if I can find them here right now. 18 guidelines. What I've been working on for this year is typing them all out. Ooh, come on. I wish it would autofocus. And then that other space over here is going to have all the examples or screenshots for everything I'm noting over here in these guidelines. I've been just highlighting for a while, adding in the charts, but I promise I have some really cool stuff once I get over there to what I've already done. Let's see. Ooh, I gotta catch up. It's a lot just to type all this. Wait till I gotta type the whole ICD or the CPT book. It's gonna take me forever. Hopefully I can get it done. But you can see here, I'm trying to add in what you're gonna code first, what's gonna be coded second, symptoms without symptoms, break it down a whole lot easier than what it is over here and all that crap, you know, because you know the guidelines are there, but you need to know, what does that mean? How do you fix it? What comes first? What comes second? That kind of thing. So that's what I'm doing, is like it's 2-page thing. So hopefully that'll help. Help. So, and plus you won't have to decipher my handwriting next year. Hopefully everybody's going to pass, and none of y'all are going to need to buy any of next year's notes. Y'all are going to be done and over me and can move on for sure. But you can send anybody you know that needs my help for next year notes, and then they won't have to suffer through my handwriting. They can see it all tight. You're very welcome. Very welcome. All right, guys. I'm not sure. I may be able to do another live tomorrow night. Hubby may have to work, so we'll see. If so, I'll be here. If not, it will be Monday. Okay, guys? I'm going to get off here and go wrangle my kids and eat some dinner. Jess, I wish you all the luck. Message me tomorrow as soon as you finish your test. Let me know how it went, how you felt. Talk to you tomorrow. Good night, guys.